In this bubbly baba deep doo doo. Hey, that track is called Hypnopathology. Wow, this microphone is super. I'm dragging it over here, sensitive. I do not plan on you. I added. Some people have requested certain changes to some different parts of my podcast. One of them is using a noise gate or noise filter. I applied a compression limiter, one specifically made for vocals. I don't think it seems to work, not with this microphone. This microphone is super sensitive, but it's also better than the noise that comes from the other mic that I have. Although, I'm going to use that microphone for another podcast that I do after this one. And this one is called Mental Illness, Alien-Abduction, Paranormal Experiences, and Metaphysical Remedies. So, with that said, why is it called that? Well, first of all, there's some scientific evidence that people who experience alien abductions and other paranormal experiences may be having these experiences because of some type of pathology or mental illness, or something along the lines of a spectrum of a mental illness, maybe not very severe, because many of these people are able to function usually normally in their daily lives, but no more or less than anybody else, because most people in this world are living with all different kinds of stressors. But there are different types of professionals and whatnot who are dealing with this stuff. Anyway, why am I saying that? Because I have evidence that from my own experience that these events are triggered by different types of traumas and chemicals. And chemicals, we have to understand, is a very broad term, because a lot of things are chemicals. Sugar, for example, is a chemical, right? C6H12O6, glucose. Water, technically, is a chemical compound of elements, right? 2 hydrogens and an oxygen, H2O. So, and then there's drinking alcohol, which some of these things I may or may not discuss more fully to get this point across here. But here's how it goes. So, why do I want to talk about this? For one main reason. And that reason is that there are a few different practices that I have combined together that, regardless of the source of these different experiences of alien abduction or other paranormal experiences, which include but are not limited to visitations by demonic or evil entities, such as people claiming to be raped in their sleep by incubi or succubi, as the plural, incubus, succubus is the singular. There was even a movie in the 1970s, I think 1971, I'm not exactly sure though, called The Entity, in which it was allegedly reported that some scientists did research on this woman in her sleep and were able to capture some evidence of this malevolent being that was terrorizing this woman at night while she slept. And then there are other experiences. And I'm mainly focusing right now on the unpleasant experiences, because that's what these different metaphysical remedies which are useful, by the way, which is the only reason why I'm sharing them, not just as a speculation, but through practice, because I don't think anybody wants to stop positive, pleasant, and helpful experiences from happening. So if you or someone you know, someone you care about, is having alien abduction experiences, if someone is experiencing other paranormal experiences that are unpleasant, then continue listening, and you can have them continue listening from here, 5 minutes and 40 seconds into this podcast, for them to learn the steps that will help them to overcome, to be empowered, and to have more confidence in dealing with these negative experiences. So here are the steps right away. I've spoken about them before, and they are very simple. They are things that people already know about, which are being widely shared on the internet right now. For example, YouTube, you can find all kinds of things about binaural beats. But by themselves, they're not going to help you necessarily unless you have some other tools to alleviate or to empower yourself or give you confidence with these experiences. The other one that many people know about and may have researched, and a lot of people use binaural beats for, is to help them to lucid dream. And again, without this other key ingredient, it's not by itself going to be helpful in overcoming and being empowered through these different types of negative experiences. You could call them negative paranormal, supernatural, metaphysical, spiritual experiences that people are having. The main thing that you or someone who needs this, whoever's listening to help themselves with these experiences, should practice, I admit, is something that I created, but I created it because out of necessity to help myself. I'm not selling it. I'm just telling you exactly what it is. And what I call it, I've given it 2 different names. You can choose one if you're going to talk to somebody about it. One of them might sound better than the other, depending on who you're talking to. I don't give a crap what people think about what I'm talking about, so to me it doesn't matter, but I do understand that other people do. And so you can either call it imaginative role-play meditation or simply role-play meditation, or you can call it superhuman practice meditation or superhuman meditation if you want to shorten it. And the meditation is very simple, but it does come in a few steps that you need to practice. So the first step, of course, with any meditation, is to find yourself in a comfortable place. So you're either going to be sitting down, reclining, as in a recliner, or completely lying down, as in your bed. And you can combine this with some of the other tools that I mentioned before, which actually this sums up to one of the ultimate ways you can use this. But here goes the first part. So find yourself in one of these comfortable positions, either sitting, reclining, or lying down. The next thing you can do, but you can also do it without, is listen to any binaural beats of your choice. You can find them all over the internet, either for free or for sale. The Monroe Institute is one of them. I also create many demi-phase audios. Mine are available for free. You do have to tolerate some advertisements in order to deal with them, which are always at the beginning and end of the frequency formulas that I create, so you're not disturbed by them in the middle of the audio. And if you have some kind of audio editing software, you can cut out the beginning and ends of commercials so that you're not disturbed by them when you download them. Or you can download them directly. I'll also put in a link to one of them called 88 Ghost and another one called Memory 89 that you can download from Amazon if you like. But like I said, you can just download most of them for free. I've created dozens of them, and you can listen to them while practicing this meditation that I described as imaginative role play or Superhuman Practice Meditation. And here's very simply how you do it. Again, finding yourself sitting, reclining, or lying down, you close your eyes, you turn on the binaural beats or any other audio that helps you to relax and meditate. You take a few deep breaths if that's going to help you to relax yourself. I always do recommend the breathing at least 3 deep breaths before letting your breathing go back to normal. So it could be anywhere between 3 to 10 breaths. And then you imagine a place, a location. Usually I use a structure like your house, your workplace, the gym, school, or even the route from home to work, home to school, home to the gym, or going back from these places, or even a park that you frequent, but some place that you're very familiar with. And this also may force you to pay more attention to these places. And what you do is you find a spot that's going to be the start and a spot that will be the end. Just like you would if you were working yourself through a maze on paper. You have a beginning and an end, right? A start and a finish. And usually, let's just take it so I can keep it simple with this explanation. You can start with your home. And you start at the front door, and then you walk in, and then you just start to move throughout every room, leaving your final destination to be the last. However you want to get there is up to you. But you can explore going through, an office or a day room or a porch. You go to the living room, you go through the dining room to the kitchen, you go to a lounge, you walk through some hallways. Maybe if there's stairs, you can go up or go down. You move in and out of different bedrooms, move through the hallways between the bedrooms before finally ending up in your final destination, which may or may not be your own bedroom, where you find yourself at last sitting down, reclining, or lying down in your room. So that's the first part of the role play or superhuman meditation. And then the next part of that is now adding the superpowers to it, because these are things that you can usually only do when you're using your imagination and as we progress through this in your lucid dreams. And remember, the point of this is that I found through practice over and over again that by doing these things, the fear, the terror, the feelings of helplessness that people have with alien abductions or other negative paranormal, supernatural, or metaphysical experiences are overcome, which I could get into later about how if these things are actually real and not some aspect of a mental disorder or a pathology or a mental illness of some kind. And I'm not claiming that people are mentally ill to the point where they're dysfunctioning. There are people like that, and it should not be a stigma against you. I'm just saying that what I'm talking about, that people do have these experiences, and what I'm telling you can be beneficial. Along with, of course, I should add this to be responsible in this world, that you should do these things only after you've consulted with, if you are currently diagnosed with some type of mental illness, that you don't want to go doing anything against the advice of your doctor. I haven't had any diagnoses, and I don't plan on getting any, but I have found that these things are helpful. So the second part of this, after you've found a place to navigate through, the second thing is to now practice using your superpowers as you navigate through. One of them that you can simply add is by opening doors, which you might not even thought about this, you might already be doing it, but when you walk in through your front door, you imagine it opening without your hand pushing it open. Now, I don't know whether people imagine going through their doors with their hand pushing it open or not, but that's one thing you can do, is imagine that with your mind the door is opening with your hand at least your imaginative hand not physically opening it. Or the other way to move through the door is by just actually moving through it, moving through solid objects and just emerging on the other side. That itself is a superpower, right? If you were able to do that while you were awake, that would be pretty awesome. So that's the two superpowers you can use. This is simply by moving through entrances, right? The second thing is that while you're doing this, you can imagine different modes of travel. You can look down at your feet and see if you're wearing pants, shorts, a dress, a skirt, whatever, socks, shoes, sandals, whatever on your feet, and you can decide to watch yourself just walking through while opening these things without using your hands, right, or any other means to push it open, just telepathically opening these different entrances and exits. The other thing that you can do is imagine yourself gliding, floating, levitating, hovering, or even flying through. I would say just, floating or gliding through, because you're not moving too fast through it. But I don't know how your mind works, so you may be able to go through these things very quickly. I tend to take my time as if I'm walking, but I usually don't see my feet walking. I usually imagine myself, hovering or floating or gliding through the structure. Usually I imagine the place that I'm living right now. And then a couple more superhuman practices that you can add are telepathically or telekinetically. I should have said that with the door opening. It's telekinesis. Telekinetically bringing objects towards you or moving them away from you. Or you could do both. So you can imagine that there might be a cup or a pencil or anything else sitting on the ground or the chair or table or whatever, and just to think about it and imagine it floating towards you. It could hover in front of you, or you can imagine your hand holding it. And you can imagine as it's hovering in front of you, floating back to where it was or moving it to some other spot. So that's telekinesis that you can practice. The other thing you can combine with, or you could just use it by itself, you can combine it with telekinesis, or you can use it by itself, is manifestation. So you can imagine any one of those objects or other ones. You can imagine a cup or a pen just forming out of nothingness into your hand, or floating in front of you. You can just imagine it appearing there where it wasn't there before, now it is. It could be a utensil like a cup, it could be a pen, it could be a book, it could be a weapon like a sword or a gun, it could be a tool, it could be anything. And then you can imagine it disappearing again. You can combine it with the telekinesis by imagining it appear and then floating away by your thought down onto the floor or to a table or to a chair or whatever you want it to do. You can also imagine it changing color or changing size. So these are all different combinations of telekinesis and manifestation abilities. And there are various other abilities that you could practice. You could practice having superhuman strength or invulnerability to different attacks, whether they be like bullets or anything else. But this is beyond the scope of just navigating through your home or another familiar place for now. So these are the things that you can practice. Now, this is very important because of the next step here in the process, which is then moving on to eventually being able to lucid dream, which offers some fantastic protections or tools or empowerment in dealing with these negative paranormal, spiritual, alien abduction, or other metaphysical experiences. Because when these things happen, they happen in this non-physical realm. And the more you're able to control and navigate and practice these different powers, the more empowered you become. Imagine if you're being attacked by an alien and you could manifest a weapon, or if you can do various other things that help you to not be afraid, or that they're actually helping you to fend off these different types of attacks in this non-physical realm. There's one other main thing that I spoke about in self-defense against alien abduction, And it's very important is to practice breathing meditation for one specific reason. When a lot of people have sleep apnea experiences where they're not able to breathe, there's a certain amount of terror that sets in. When people can't breathe, it's very frightening to them. And what I've learned to do is by taking at the moment of feeling and sensing that this is happening, is by quickly drawing in a breath as quickly as you can, breathing in, either through your nose or mouth or both. And when you do that, it's just like if you were diving in water before you go swimming. When you do that, you're able to stay underwater longer without that feeling of discomfort that you can't breathe. So that's actually one of the first steps that you can do physically. And I didn't really add that. I talked about that before, and I'll talk about that as I continue developing this more. But as it is, it works really great for these experiences, just taking that deep breath in. But even without that, some of these other things factor in much better. So the next step will eventually is practicing how to lucid dream. And for those who don't know what lucid dreaming has a few steps. I call them, I break them off into two categories for right now. One is called lucid dreaming, and the other is called super lucid dreaming. And lucid dreaming would simply be becoming aware that you're dreaming and knowing that you're dreaming, where you have this feeling, this sensation of, wow, this is a dream. And I know I'm dreaming because this is not my reality. It's like waking up on a different planet or in a different reality. And then you just acknowledge and become aware that you're dreaming. And so that's the first step of this, of what happens when you practice this next mantra, because we're fighting monsters in some ways, right? But when you practice this mantra or meditation or just simply a self-hypnosis exercise, this helps you to begin to become aware of your lucid dreams, and then eventually move on to the next stage of that, which is called super lucid dreaming, which you're then able to start practicing all those things that we talked about before in the Superhuman Practice Meditation or the imaginative role play meditation. That's when those things become really amazing, is that when you've practiced them in your imagination, then you're able to do these things like using telekinesis to open and close doors, to manifest things that you want into your reality, like tools or weapons, to be able to fly, float, or levitate, to have super strength or be impenetrable to attacks, right? To be invincible to attacks. These things all become important when you become a super lucid dreamer. Sometimes they cross over into being just a lucid dreamer, and I'm saying I'm not dismissing it, because it's a very amazing experience itself just to become aware that you're dreaming. But when you're able to add these different superhuman powers to it, that's what becomes more confidence building. So here's the practice to start to become a super lucid dreamer. Okay, and it's very simple self-hypnosis exercise, mantra, or meditation, however you'd like to call it, where you throughout your day, you ask yourself a question and you answer it. And the question that you ask yourself is, am I dreaming? And you will always answer, yes, I am dreaming, immediately followed by a reality testing. But something simple. Attempt to move an object towards you or manifest something into your hand. I wouldn't suggest flying or anything like that, because people will misconstrue that and they might find themselves on top of a building and try to jump off, and that's a no-no. We should all know this, right? That's not how we're going to reality test our stuff. I have to say this, I really do. I've given this a lot of thought, and there's some really, strange places people can go. But the first things to attempt to practice are telekinesis, by imagining things coming towards you or moving away from you just by you thinking it, and or imagining objects forming out of thin air before you where there wasn't something there before, and imagine it moving around, or imagining things disappear. You can also imagine them changing colors and different things like that, right? You could practice super strength by attempting to lift up a heavy object, like if you have weights in your house and they're normally heavy, see if you can lift it up very easily, but moving slowly. Something like that. we need to be cautious, but it's just a form of reality testing. And if you're awake, of course, and you answer that question and you're not able to do these things, you can then say, okay, well, maybe I'm not dreaming. Sometimes that's not an indicator, though, even when you are dreaming, but it's a way to test. That's why you test several different things. But one of these things will happen. And from a seated position in your imagination, in your reality testing, or from where you are from standing, just imagine, can you float up off of the ground? Right? So you practice these different things as a reality testing. So again, you ask yourself the question throughout the day, am I dreaming? And you answer, yes, I am dreaming. You can do this out loud or to yourself. It depends on where you are and how appropriate it is to be saying these things out loud if you do decide to say them out loud. And then to do these different reality testings. But what you do is you do that as many times as you can throughout the day. Some people, if you're a smoker, right, if you smoke cigarettes, you know that you take cigarette breaks. So you can do this practice every time you take a cigarette break. You can ask yourself, am I dreaming? And then answer the question, yes, I'm dreaming. And then while you're doing that, maybe see if you can imagine lighting the cigarette without fire. Give yourself a few seconds. If it doesn't happen, of course, use your lighter. You can imagine manifesting more cigarettes into the pack. You can imagine yourself floating off of the ground from where you're standing up. You can imagine manifesting things into existence or not, changing the color of your cigarettes. Another way of reality testing. The point is, I use that because I just was looking at something about people smoking all the time. I don't smoke, but I used to, on and off. But the thing is that I know that people take frequent cigarette breaks, especially people who smoke a pack a day. But you find something like that you do. It could be something that every time you have to scratch your nose, or if you have an itch on the top of your head or behind your neck, or you feel an itch on the palm of your hands, let that be a reminder to ask yourself the question until every day you're asking yourself that question over and over again. And what happens is that when you're sleeping, eventually you start asking yourself that question in your sleeping and dreaming world, and then you become aware that you're dreaming, and you start to lucid dream and become aware that you're dreaming, like I said. Or you may start to have super lucid dreams where then as you start to reality test, you can manifest objects, you can move them with your mind, you can have superhuman strength, you can be invulnerable to different attacks, you can fly. And remember, the two things that are really dangerous that you don't want to do stupid stuff are, I have to say this, are imagining that you're invulnerable to attacks and flying. The flying thing, you're not jumping off of anything. You're just imagining looking down at your feet and watching yourself float off the ground up into the sky. If you can do that, then wow, yes, I really am dreaming. And the invulnerability to attacks, you're not trying to stab yourself with anything or try to cut yourself to see if it doesn't. That's just really dumb. I'm sorry, but I just have to say these things. We got to use something that's not so common, which is sense. Okay? The other things you can pretty much safely do, manifesting things, making objects float or move around to and from you with your mind. Okay, so those you can practice. Superhuman strength is the next one, but it's kind of between the telekinesis and the floating or invincibility. So there's that. So eventually that shows up in your dreams. And so now I've bridged those all together, and the whole time, when you're meditating, you could be using the binaural beats. Actually, what you're hearing in the background is one of them that I call SolfeggiOceaniX, which takes you through all 9 solfeggio tones, but has a beginning of some gateway tones reverse engineered from the Monroe Institute, and it ends with those same gateway tones. And so you can use this recording. I'll put the link to that into this podcast. Also, so you can use it while you're meditating and going through your imaginative role-play meditation or your superhuman practice meditation. You can put them on while you're actually going to sleep to help you with your sleep and lucid dreaming. And you can every once in a while listen to it, and when you even just have some time to relax or take a break, and you just ask yourself the question, am I dreaming? And you answer, yes, I am dreaming. So there's that again. This podcast I've decided to call Mental Illness, Alien-Abduction, Paranormal Experiences, and Metaphysical Remedies. The Metaphysical Remedies specifically center around this imaginative role play, or as I also call it, Superhuman Practice Meditation. And these are ways of reality testing when you actually start to lucid dream. And there are several things like floating, flying, manifestation, telekinesis, super strength, invincibility, and you can help trigger your lucid dreaming by using the mantra or self-hypnosis exercise, which is simply asking yourself the question, am I dreaming? And answering, yes, I am dreaming, and then attempting to reality test by practicing one of those superhuman powers. And that's why the Superhuman Practice Meditation, or the imaginative role play meditation, is the primary thing for you to practice, because it gets you used to learning how to steer your mental conscious body, your astral body, your spiritual body, through some place that you're familiar with. It helps to build up the ability to do that, which is of primary importance when entering any of these non-physical worlds. So there you have it. I'm going to touch on this at some other times later on, but I think that the idea is there. I know that as I practice more, I'll be able to get the idea across more clearly, but I mean, that's pretty much it. But the primary thing is really learning how to navigate in your mind through places that you're familiar with, as if you were mentally haunting it. Your physical body you can feel and you know is relaxing in one place, but you're exploring this whole thing in your mind. That's a very powerful practice. And so that will definitely help you on your journey in overcoming these terrifying experiences that people often have in the form of alien abductions or encounters with evil or demonic entities. And the point that I'm going to end with is that regardless of whether these things are some types of symptoms of mental illness or hallucinations or some kind of problem that we're having as humans that mainstream science and psychologists and psychiatrists will say are just in your mind, well, these practices I'm sharing with you are also in your mind, but the power that they have is to empower you with more confidence, to eliminate fear, and you to become the superhuman, to become the superhero, to be able to overcome these negative experiences that you may be having in your life. And so that's what is very important about this, that it doesn't matter whether these experiences are so-called real or not. What I have found is that regardless of their source, these practices help you to become the one who's in control and in charge of these experiences. There will be many links to different things that you'll be able to use, tools you'll be able to use in the show notes for this podcast. That's it for now. I'm Hakeem Ali Bokus Alexander. I'm going to play some heavy metal. Stay well.